Today our learning goal is to solve equations using addition and subtraction. We're going to work on one-step equations. Two equations are equivalent equations if they have the same solution. So when you solve for the variable, if that's the same, then we call the two equations equivalent. We're going to use two important properties. We're going to use the addition property of equality. They call it equity here, which means adding the same number to each side of an equation produces an equivalent equation. So it's the addition property of equality, or equity, you can say. The subtraction property of equality states that subtracting the same number from each side of an equation produces an equivalent equation. Okay, so we're going to look at the first example. The equation is x minus a half equals 3/8. We're going to look at the variable. The variable is on the left side. We want to get the variable by itself. So I notice that we are subtracting 1/2 from the x. The opposite of subtracting 1/2 from the x is to add 1/2. If we add 1/2 on the left side of the equation, we have to add it to the right side of the equation. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. What happens here now is that the x stays there, and the negative 1/2 and the positive 1/2 cancel out. And then we add 3/8 plus 1/2. You again need to get a common denominator, which they did, and got the answer of 7/8. And your answer should be written x equals 7/8. If we look at the second equation, we have x plus 3.2 equals negative 8.5. They are adding 3.2 to the x. So the opposite of adding 3.2 is to subtract 3.2. We subtract it from the left side of the equal sign and from the right side of the equal sign. When we do that, the positive 3.2 minus 3.2 cancels out, and x is now by itself. Then we look at the right side. We have two negative numbers. Since they're both negative, we add them together and we get negative 11.7. So that's our answer. Now let's look at the first practice problem. The equation is m minus 3 2/3 is equal to negative 1/3. So they are subtracting 3 2/3 from m. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going to add 3 2/3. And then, of course, you have to add 3 2/3 to the right side of the equation. Now, on the left side of the equation, you have a negative 3 2/3 and a positive 3 2/3. They cancel each other out. And m is now by itself, where we need it, equals. We have negative 1/3 and positive 3 2/3. Therefore, I know I'm going to subtract, since one number is negative and the other is positive. I'm going to do 3 2/3 minus 1/3. I know my answer is going to be positive. 2/3 minus 1/3 is 1/3. So my answer will be 3 1/3. Next, I'm going to look at the second example. Okay, it is 4.8 plus z. In order to get the z by itself, we have to subtract 4.8 from the left and subtract 4.8 from the right side. The 4.8s cancel each other out. Z is now by itself, and it equals, these are both negative numbers on the right side, so we're going to add them together, and we get negative 13.8. Finally, the third example. Now I notice my variable is on the right side. That's okay. We still look. What do we have to do to get the y by itself? Well, since they are subtracting they're subtracting 35.6, we're going to add 35.6 to the right side, and we're going to add 35.6 35.6 to the left side of the equal sign. These cancel out on the right side now. The y comes down, the equal sign comes down, and now on the left side, we have a positive number and a negative number. Positive number is bigger, so I know the answer will be positive, and now all I have to do is subtract 35.6 minus 16.7. So after doing that, I got y equals 18.9. Now, you could take any of these answers, substitute it back into the original equation, and both sides should be equal. Finally, let's look at the word problem. Tom withdrew $55.25 from his checking account. Now his balance is negative $24.75. Write and solve an equation to find the amount of money in Tom's account before he withdrew the money. So we don't know what he had in his account, so I'm going to call it A, like the letter A for account. And we know he withdrew money, which means that money came out of his account, negative 55.25. And we know when it was all done, he had a negative balance, negative 24.75. Sorry, it's hard to write on an iPad. Okay, now that I have my equation, I notice that we're subtracting 55.25 from A, so I'm going to add 55.25, and I'm going to add it to the right side of the equal sign. And on the left side, the numbers cancel out. A is now by itself, equals. I know when I combine what's on the right side, I have a positive and a negative number. Positive number is bigger, so therefore my answer will be positive. And then I'm just going to do 55.25 and subtract 24.75. And I get the answer of $30.50. So it does make sense. If he started out with $30.50 and he took out $55.25, he will end up with that negative $24.75. You're next going to try the 10 practice problems on the practice page. You must show your work the way I am showing you. This will help you when we get into more complicated equations. I realize some of these seem very easy. Some of these seem like you can do them in your head, but I'm going to require you to show the work, so please do.